Let's have a game and estimate how many selfies you're going to be asked for this year. Please tell me it is quite a few.
Yeah, it's quite embarrassing, really, for me. Let me introduce you to Mark, my son. He's the president of the Law Society. That's not quite right. That isn't right at all. And even to this day, I've always found it quite strange to be in a supermarket, with my family and an old lady giving you a big hug and then just walking off.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of But Is It Legal, the podcast from TBD Marketing. Thanks for watching along. I always appreciate it. Never take your time for granted. And today, I think you'll know who I'm going to be joined by. You can see who it is. But Mark Evans, Law Society President. It'd be great if you could introduce yourself and say hello to the people who are going to watch this episode of the podcast as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Evans, President, Law Society of England and Wales.
Thanks for joining us today and for giving your time, precious time that you've got as well. I know that you've got a huge job on for the year ahead and try and see many people as you can. So thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Can we start out with really simple ones? Like, what is it that interests you in the role? Because obviously you've been a solicitor previously. What was it that kind of attracted you to want to be president of the Law Society?
I think really an opportunity to try and make some change in the profession. I've always felt sort of a little bit maybe sometimes of an outsider, coming from a small village in North Wales and and I've always thought that I wanted to try and make changes, which is why I really got involved with the Law Society of the Wales Committee initially. And then that moved on to the National in 2015 when I joined council. And I think then, nothing really is planned, but as time goes by, you see maybe there's some opportunities or things that you can influence so that you can bring your own voice to. And then it just naturally sort of moves on with evolution. And so, I think just the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time to try and make some changes in the profession.
The prior career, can you give a quick pop to the history of that for people as well, just so they know, how you got to where you are today? Because I think it inspires a lot of people to see, we were talking earlier, the diversity we've had in the leadership over the course of the last few years. So,
I never thought I would be a solicitor, let alone president of the Law Society of England and Wales. Never for one moment did I ever think that was possible. I'm from, as I say, a small village, went to a state-educated school, no family background in law. My father was a steel worker. My mum volunteered in the local primary school. We had no connections with law at all. And it was only through my history teacher, who got me a work placement in the sixth form, that I thought, wow, that's fascinating, really. I really, really enjoyed my work experience. And then obviously was fortunate to go to get my law degree and I got a training contract in Wrexham in 1993. And I stayed with that firm for just over 29 years. Practicing in sort of private client property and a bit of agricultural work as well. And I loved it. I've always been a bit of a people person. And as a student, I worked in a pub and liked that interaction. And the area of law that I went into is all about speaking like we are now, face to face, finding your story, trying to see what solutions we can come up with or what help we can offer you, or literally handing over your keys when you just bought your first house, So it's that interaction that I've always enjoyed throughout my career. And as a trainee, I did litigation, did a bit of crime and other areas and family work, and that's fine. But personally, I got a bit frustrated with waiting around at court or the travel and everything. But I really found my feet with the area of law that I got involved with.
And then later on, the lecture kind of role.
A bit of a real sort of change in direction, but in a way not. Because for many years, even when I was in practice, I used to give a lot of seminars to the Health Board and to the Women's Institute, all about succession planning and the National Farmers Union. And I really...
Basically been a celebrity for the whole group.
Well, not necessarily a celebrity, but I really enjoyed sort of that 1 hour slot of saying, why haven't you made a will? Or, what about a power of attorney? And what's the importance of that? So I really engaged with the audience as such. And then during lockdown, I was at that time chair of the Wales committee, and the University of South Wales asked me in the lunch hour to talk to their students. 20 minutes as a life as a practitioner,
Right.
20 minutes as my role with the Law Society, and then 20 minutes Q&A. And the 20 minutes Q&A went for on about 40 minutes. And I left that Zoom call and I thought, wow, that's just fascinating. And so basically what I then went home that night and said to my wife, do you know what? Lecturing maybe could be something I could be interested in. And she just gave me the words to say, just go and do it.
Wow.
And so I spoke to somebody who I knew who was involved. And then not long after, I got an interview, got an offer, handed in my notice, stepped away from being, a director and a shareholder of a company I'd been involved with for my whole life. I moved into lecturing, and that was in 2021. And
nothing going on at that point in the time world, right?
Yeah, nothing going on. I think it was lockdown and COVID and it really made me focus on, as it did for all of us, I think, it's reset what you were looking at and what you were doing. And I'd also been through a lot of personal things that had changed in my life, which gave me a little bit more freedom to do something different. And so I moved into lecturing, and I have to say, I don't think I'd be here today had I not done that move, because the last 3 or 4 years teaching aspiring solicitors and aspiring barristers and those entering into the profession has basically given me the drive and the ambition to do something for them.
Yeah.
Which possibly was lacking when it was just personal.
Right.
But now I see what they are going into the profession, it drives me to say that profession's got to be better for them, moving forward.
I love it. It's Gandhi-esque, isn't it? Be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, or at least enable that change for other people as well. With that in mind, when you started in role, what felt like most urgent? I mean, we've got a year. I know you're prepping for it for a couple of years and you're coming into role, but what felt most urgent that you were going to tackle?
I mean, for me, I look at it sort of different ways, really, that I think what the public don't understand and what politicians really don't understand is the pressures of being on a high street firm and running a high street firm.
Yeah.
And it's that regulation and the administration and everything that people don't see that goes on behind the scenes rather than the interaction with the clients. And it was trying to help those practitioners on the coalface, whether it be in Northumbria or Carlisle or, Southampton or in Wales, whatever. It's getting sort of to a point where all this regulation, all this change that we've had with the SRA and what's coming now down the pipeline, potentially with the FCA and all of these type of things, is saying there's got to be some sort of, review of this, and we've got to be realistic as to what you're passing on to the solicitor's profession. So regulation and sort of, administration issues for me. And coupled with that was when you're under that much pressure in your firm, and conveyancers were a good example of this, it's your well-being, your mental health and well-being, and the pressure it's having on you to keep your head above water in, really, really trying circumstances and things. And, for many firms, it's making sure you're just sort of breaking even or, in their communities, they're not as, financially resourced or as rich as people assume that they maybe are, and so I think it's making sure that, we protect the solicitors involved, but equally, it's the other wider aspect. It's their financial well-being, it's their mental well-being, it's their physical well-being, it's the whole package of things. And so that's what's sort of been driving what I wanted to.
I mean, you've seen on the ground the difference it makes when people in their communities get good legal advice from great practitioners.
Yeah.
And we lose that at our peril, right? I mean, if we put that at risk. There's been a lot of upset in some of the WhatsApp groups I'm in recently around some of the proposed changes in relation to blind interest as well. Yeah. And not saying the balance is right as we've got it at the moment, but there's, some feeling that is going to decimate a lot of smaller firms, kind of ability to serve those clients as well as they can. So You know, it's I can see how there's a lot of work to be done there this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging times, you know. I mean, you know, there's a lot of announcements that are beyond my control. You know, I plan for maybe what I would like to achieve in my year, but I can't predict what David Lammy will say about jury trials or what announcements will be made by the MOJ about client interest or any of these things.
Yeah.
So we've got to adapt to that. Fortunately, you know, I work with a very fantastic team here, you know, as such at the Law Society, and we've also got such a huge membership to call upon for their views and advice. You know, we've got 210,000 solicitors. And one of the projects that I've been really, really excited about launching last October was Get Involved, because most people view the National Society, as did I, as remote.
Yeah.
You know, you're only involved if you're on the Law Society Council or you're on a specialist committee. And we're talking then about maybe 1,000 people or so. But what we realise is that people just want to dip in and dip out and give their feedback, as they do on social media quite freely, as such, some good and bad, or the Gazette or in the comments or whatever. But we wanted to have a facility where we could say to people, look, we want your views on this particular topic, whether that be in a webinar, whether that be on a questionnaire or a poll or a roundtable discussion. We're not asking you to join council, we're not asking you to join a committee, but we're saying we've got opportunities for you to have a say. And that really is transformational. So, good example, you know, and I'll use this now. We had obviously the consultation on the TA6, the you know, residential property conveyancing form. 1,200 people gave feedback. That then transferred into updating the new form, which has been launched, obviously, you know, last year, pretty much now, where most universally people say it's a far better form. You know, and that's because we've used the voice of 1,200 members rather than 12, you know, and so...
It's democratisation.
Yeah, you still need the 12 people to actually do the day-to-day job and draft it and all of that, but they're using the data and the information they've got from that wider pool. And that's really where, you know, my message is, yeah, you might not want to be involved with us all the time, but Jip, you know, when you've got something to say, don't just say it on social media, come to us and tell us what your views are, because, you know, everyone's voice matters. And I really want to encourage people with diverse views to say what they want, because we're in a diverse profession.
I love that. The well-being side of things then, tell me back to that, because, and please can you tell me about LegalRunner? Like, how did that come about? And it feels like a personal thing to you as well, like it's close to your heart.
Yeah, well-being it's personal in that I've seen it with my own family of how sort of illness can affect your physical and mental well-being. And so, to put it into context, you know, my dad, as I mentioned before, was a steel worker. When he was in work at the steelworks, he had a stroke at the age of 53 and sort of lost mobility for a short period, got that back. 58, he had a brain hemorrhage, but then he had to sort of stop work. And the impact of being worker, sort of bringing in the money, you know, and then the effect it had on him, you know, physically and mentally, of having an illness that transformed his life. And then watching him sort of cope and deal with those measures, let alone the fact that what he'd done in his childhood, which, you know, we didn't really talk about at that stage. And then, but you were witnessing it. And then, of course, he had his dementia. And what I really struggled with, there was nothing I could do. I was a son watching my dad deteriorate in front of me, and there was absolutely nothing I could do to help or support him other than be there for him.
Yeah.
And so I found that really tough. And I started, without subconsciously, putting on weight. You know, I'd be eating more, I wouldn't be exercising, wouldn't be doing anything. I was becoming more lethargic, becoming more sort of despondent, watching what my dad was doing about the whole scenario. And it came to a tipping point in 2019 for me where I thought, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be my dad having a stroke in my 50s.
Wow.
I knew what was coming down the line. I hadn't yet hit 50. I thought, I'm going to be him.
Right.
And, you know, there's a few hereditary things that we've got, and I can see that the writing was on the wall. And so I took up running.
Yeah.
And I
In
just-
2019?
In 2019, I started.
Where were you when you got going? Was it literally like run to the end of the road kind of?
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Right.
I mean, literally, I went into my wife's gym at the time. She had an army instructor, ex-army instructor, who's a fitness guy, young lad.
You got to get those guys doing.
Yeah, and he said to me, he said, "Come on, let's get you on the treadmill."
Yeah.
And I went, "Really?" And he said, "We'll do 10 minutes." It nearly killed me. I mean, literally, I hadn't run for maybe over 30 years.
Right.
And I thought I was going to die. I come off there absolutely thinking that's not for me.
Right.
And he then said to me, he said, "Well, what do you want to do next year?" I said, "Do you know what? In the back of my mind, I always watch like the London Marathon.
Right.
I think I'd love to do a marathon." And he really confidently looked me in the eye now and said, "Well, you can do it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a plan. We'll give you 10 months. And he said, Chester Triple, in Chester, they do like a challenge, a triple challenge, 10K in March,
Yeah.
half marathon in May, full marathon in October.
Yeah.
And he says, in 10 months, we'll give you some dietary plans and we'll give you a plan to slowly build yourself up, sign up to it. And I did. And I signed up to it. But I also signed up to it to run for Alzheimer's Society.
Right.
Because then I've had a cause to run for without giving up. Because I thought, do you know what? And I posted something that time on Facebook saying, I've gone and done something really stupid. I've gone and signed up for a marathon in 10 months' time.
Right.
And then in the January, my dad died
Oh.
in 2020.
Wow.
And I'd gone about 4 or 5 weeks of training now. I'd just got to about 5K on the treadmill.
Right.
Still really uncomfortable. And it's that split moment of what do you do?
Yeah.
And actually, it was my drive then to say, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I actually then got the motivation to say, wow. So I did the 10K in March, then COVID hit, and then I actually ran around North Wales on the mountains and on the coast on my own. And it gave me peace, it allowed me to cope with grief and everything. And then in October, I did the London Virtual Marathon and I ran to my dad's steelworks.
Oh.
So I ran actually to my dad's place of work, really in memory of him as such. And it was a strange thing that, you know, you achieved it. And then I thought, that's good. That's really good. And then I thought, I've got to carry this on now.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really want to do a marathon. I went to my local park run, got involved there, sort of volunteered. To help organise it. I was a pacer or picking up when you finish the race, taking your code, scanning your code and all of that. And I then really found the community there. And a lot of the people I'd be running with, it's really hard in the legal profession to explain what you do.
Yeah.
Because of confidentiality and all these things.
Of course.
And I then just had a brainwave one day, why don't I form a running group for lawyers?
Right.
Just for anyone in the legal profession, just to get off their chest what is on their mind. Because I found through running, I've talked about so much topics with people, and they've talked and shared their experiences with me. And that's where LegalRunner really was formed, about creating a community where you have a safe environment to talk to somebody who actually understands what pressures you're under. Because as I said, earlier, nobody really understands the pressures of being on a high street or in-house firm or, whatever it is, the pressures of being a lawyer, and I always remember, those early days with my mum saying, well, how's your day been? It'd be busy or very busy. How's your day been? My mum was always keen to say, well, has Doreen been to see you to make a will or whatever? Doreen was her best friend. And I'd say, Mum, I can't tell you that, can I? I can't tell you. It's confidential. If Doreen wants to tell you something, she can. And even to this day, I've always found it quite strange to be in a supermarket, with my family and an old lady giving you a big hug. And then just walking off, and then, the family...
That is quite strange.
Yeah, but then the family say to you, well, how do you know her? Well, I mean, if she doesn't say anything, I can't say anything. Now, more often than not, they will say to you, what the connection is and everything else. But one lady did just give me that hug and walk off, which is quite embarrassing, isn't it, really? But it's, yeah.
I'm sure it's going to happen a lot over the next year anyway. People are grateful for you showing up in relation to the mental well-being, the physical well-being as well. So I think you've got to get used to being hugged by strangers, maybe at the Law Society over the next wee while as well. So thank you for all that you've been doing so far. Is there something about running you think that is different to other sports for you?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Okay. I think it's all abilities.
Right.
Okay, that's the starting point. I'm not good. Okay, I say I'm not good. Some people might say that, yeah, I'm underselling it, but literally, I'm a bit of I'm a plodder. I don't really ever think I'm ever going to win. I don't think I'm a fast runner. But for me, it's all about endurance. It's just about getting to the finish. And I'm not embarrassed to walk as well. I'll walk and I'll run, but I just like being outside, getting nature and listening, to what's on around me or some music or whatever it is. And so I love the aspect that running is for all abilities and all distances. You can go any distance, whatever you want. And I actually find that it's just mentally it gives you that, I'll just get that extra mile or that extra, 100 meters or that extra distance. So I'm just going to run for another 5 more minutes and see if I can do it. So it allows you gradually to build up your mental capacity. But the best thing about running is I'm giving you eye contact now and talking to you. When we're running, I'm not looking at you.
No.
And actually, my experience of running is, especially with men, and I say that especially with men, we don't talk about things that really matter to us when we're looking at each other. And yeah, I've been in these running groups talking with some groups of friends now. The conversations we've had would never have happened at this table or in a pub or in a social setting. But when we've been out running either side by side, or more often I'm at the back and they're in front of me, and I'm just trying to listen to what's going on, I'm literally, they're offloading in that moment in time what's on their mind. And you then finish and it's as if it has never happened. And there's something really, really therapeutic about talking to a stranger what you wouldn't do with a work colleague or even your family. Because something that's been bottled up inside you or something that you're not sure how to communicate it or what to say, actually talking to a complete stranger and saying, I've got this on my mind, I'm really worried about this, and what do you think I should be doing? More often than not, in a group, they'll talk to you and say, well, have you tried this or have you done that? And you might disregard all of that, but you've actually opened the door to discuss it.
Something makes it through, doesn't it? Always. There's always a chink of light that comes through the cloud.
Yeah, and I've just found that running element the running is the secondary element for me. It's actually the engagement with people, and sort of saying, do you know what? Let's find a little bit of time to spend time with each other and just see what we can evolve and what we can do, And so I'm, as I say, I'm not in it for the speed. I'm not in it for anything else. But what has been fantastic is since I've started the groups, it's just boomed. It's just sort of gone way beyond.
What are we talking? I don't know what the numbers are. Are they?
Yeah, we've got now, we've got about 1,400 on LinkedIn in that group, but then we've got a lot of people on Strava who are not on LinkedIn. We've got Facebook.
The Strava lot are the ones who are going for the record.
The Strava are the more, I look at the distances that some of these people doing weekly. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But, everyone's each their own. That's what I'm saying. The group is inclusive to all.
Yeah.
I get just as much joy looking at somebody who's just starting from day one than somebody who's completing that ultra marathon or that task, which is equally as good. But it's that diversity. And I also feel that runners are very willing to share experiences with people. So I'm more than happy to learn off someone else or to be inspired by someone else. And I'd been to, I was just started to launch the group, and I'd actually talked to Jamie Bolsh, who, GB, British athlete, world champion, and he was at the Cardiff Law Society dinner. And I was sitting next to him and I was telling him about my running and, had a selfie with him, because I'd run a marathon and I was a runner, and obviously we were chatting away and I was talking to him about my ideas and what I was doing. And I launched my group on LinkedIn, and within minutes, the first member who joined it was Jamie Bolsh.
No.
Yeah. I looked at that. Number one LinkedIn member of the LegalRunner group is Jamie Bolsh.
That is just...
And I went, I'll sit in the bar high, isn't it? That's sort of, whoa. I mean, you're going to have to go some now to beat that. And then, so he joined, and I've had conversations with him, since about supportive and different things. And then we've just sort of grown, and we've grown with a real mix of people and backgrounds. I've got other sports people. I'm hopefully going to be interviewing soon now David James, the rugby player, and, talking to him about his life in the law and, mental health and the issues he's faced as a professional, athlete and everything. And he's just put a book out there now. And so we've got a mixture of people in there. But for me, it's just gone, as I say, it's gone beyond. But what's really made it special is I've now got 45, and it's growing, regional contacts around England and Wales and overseas now, where, let's say, on Thursday night in Bristol, Thursday morning, a little running group is formed, or in Cambridge, or in Plymouth, or in Newcastle. So these little groups now, it's nothing with me, they're organising it themselves, but they're getting together for little runs. Or they're getting together within their little groups, and so it's been fantastic to witness sort of this community spirit.
It feels like it harks back to that earlier point about being a high street solicitor in centre. That's exactly. That idea of being representative in the communities. Yeah. It's quite a Welsh thing, I think, anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing I need to try and break through is a lot of the big firms have their own little running group.
Did you?
So why run with anyone else? I want to really break through to them to run with other people, so that you, as I said to you, you will speak to people outside of your immediate circle.
Yeah.
Sometimes you won't have the same conversation with your work colleague as such. Even though you think you might, I'm just going to say to you, just test it. Join a group that isn't just with work related and that wider audience. And I think, we'll see what people say, but I think you'll find that you'll have a different conversation and you'll get a different experience.
I think it's great advice. My daughter went off to uni a few years ago. She's final year now. And I said to her, look, you might consider getting a job in a bar, not for the money really, but actually to have some mates.
Yeah.
That are nothing to do with who you live with, and then nothing to do with people you're on the course with.
Yeah.
And then she's a sport, and she's done each of those things, apart from getting a job. But she's got these different communities, and I think that each of us need that, don't we? That opportunity to speak to people who are, know a part of us, don't know all of us, but maybe we get something from that conversation that, when you're falling out with your housemates, you've got somewhere else to go and spend a bit of time.
Yeah, and I think it's, it really is important to have that. We have lots of different communities that we're involved with, aren't we? And I think it is that word, and I keep on going back to it, it is having that, they all play an important part in your life as such, and there is an interaction between them. And so, but I think for me, it's always been a constant, I think, as I say, going back to, childhood, I talked about my dad and, my mum. My dad worked 6 days a week as in the steelworks, and yet he was the chair of governors in the local primary school. He was captain of the local golf club. He was a volunteer for the Rotary and the charities there. Where did he get that time? I mean, I look back, I know people say I'm the busy, but it was natural.
Yeah.
He never talked, he found the time, he found so I've sort of grown up in an environment where it was just normal to do these things. So when people say to me, why are you doing all these other things? Well, I've never known it really any different, because when you're in a small community, you look after each other, you support each other,
yeah,
and you give what you can to help others, and so, yeah, I mean, and it's been really nice for me to follow in my dad's footsteps and be that school governor or that chair. And I don't know the age of your audience, but to be Father Christmas in the same school that my my father was Father Christmas, you know, and, you know, for 6 years I've been, you know, in the grotto as such, you know. And so, yeah, it's,
Well, you've referenced it certain times there. I think solicitors have often been rugby players, internationals.
Yeah.
They've been Father Christmases. They've been a pillar of the community. They've been the chairman of the board of governors for schools as well. And I think that just when you were talking there, it reminded me of Andrew Corlett, who I met years ago on the Isle of Man, and he was, you know, a minister in the government on the Isle of Man, as well as something to do with the Law Society there, as well as, you know, the managing partner of John O'Connor Law Firm. And you know, you just knew you had this civic responsibility about you in your community that you had to do these things.
I will say, you know, one of the big things I'm really pleased the Law Society do now is Legal Heroes.
Right.
We used to do these sort of, you know, big awards for, corporate awards, I would call them. But now we're looking at individuals. What are they doing in their community or in their area that is outstanding?
Yeah.
You know, really focusing on that individual, you know, that person who is, let's say, you know, volunteering at the lifeboat, you know, as well as being by day an employment lawyer or whatever it will be, or, you know, these people who are going above and beyond. And I have to say, you know, we're not given as much recognition as I think we deserve in the legal profession, especially solicitors, for the community work that we do. And that's one of the themes I've got about championing the work that we do. Yeah. Not only is it giving them, you know, individuals and businesses and that the support on a high street, it's actually the wider picture. So when I was on a school governing body, there was another lawyer on the school governing body with me, no other professionals. You know, and you look around you and some of these things, and it is the solicitor who is in these trustees or that, you know, little community group or the volunteer doing this and that. And it's something that, you know, when the public have a perception of us, you know, and what we do in our job, and I think it's a sort of a misconceived perception, you know, and, you know, the headlines that the papers do and all this negative rhetoric. But actually, those 200,000 solicitors, yeah, I think, you know, wow, we need to be really championing the work that they're doing because they're staying on the high street. You know, they're still giving that community service, whereas the banks and the building societies have all left. You know, you go to my town now, all the banks have gone. The last one in Holywell closed last year.
Right.
There are still 3 solicitors' firms on that high street. Town that has 10,000 people. Roughly, you know, they're still there, you know, and so you look around on that high street and how everything's shut and some of the shops are shut, or they got the charity shop or the coffee shop. The solicitors are still there. And they're obviously not only there, they're employing people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're employing the people in their community and they're giving back. And I just think, going back to what I said before about why am I in it, if we're not careful with all the changes that we're being forced upon us and the regulations and that, they're gone.
My fear is that those changes require consolidation in the market, which means that we may well lose the exact thing that we're trying to retain, which is local representation. Somebody who's like I say, a pillar of the community, like showing up as well. So is that can we expect to see that as a big theme for the next few months in your presidency, talking about that? Addressing what the public may or may not know and the government may or may not know about the solicitor's profession. Yeah,
it's sort of, I think there's it's an educational piece, really, you know, and I think, and I go back to why I'm in education now, I think education has the power to change so much, you know, and if I had a wish, you know, I would love, you know, sort of law to be taught in primary or secondary school as part of the curriculum, whether it be for a week or not, so they understand the importance that law plays in your everyday life. And I think that would also generate more social mobility, more people to be interested in law. So as I said to you, I didn't think I could be a lawyer.
Right.
You know, I never thought with my background I could be a lawyer. It interested me, but I never thought it was possible. So I think, you know, education is there, and it's at that early stage, but also now for us, we have a duty to be educating the public and the politicians of actually what we do day in, day out, you know, and not take it for granted that they know it. And so, you know, one of the campaigns we've been doing recently is about reframing justice, about talking about things that the public just don't necessarily undeceive. And I'm not being in any way disrespectful, but if I said to you, what does the rule of law mean? Then I'm not going to ask you to.
Well, I'd say I think I know it when I see it's being broken.
Yeah.
And I think we see it broken transatlantically at the moment on a regular basis. I think it's a respect for, the idea that there's a rule and we adhere to those rules and they give us the boundaries of society.
Yeah. And I think, it's these sort of things. But when you go out there and say, well, if that had disintegrated or if that isn't there, what impact would that have on you? What as a member of the public, if you were arrested, do you expect that you would have somebody to help or support you in the police station or in the prison cell or something for a crime that you hadn't committed? Or do you feel that there should be a solicitor available for you when you need safety because you're a victim of domestic abuse, or you need an injunction, or you need somebody to protect you? The answer is always going to be yes. But that needs the infrastructure and the facilities to do it. And often that sadly means money. And that means you've got to invest in it and change the system. And I think, the public, will always put in priority, quite naturally, health and education. But the fabric of society, the legal system, is a core, for it to function.
I agree.
And, my lobbying is we need more money invested in the system, for the society to function well.
Yeah, one thing I never understood that we hadn't done enough for over the last 25 years was conveying the fact that, international work has been written under two legal systems, like the New York or England and Wales, and that predicated how deals were done, which courts listened to those, kind of elements later on if they came to dispute, or even how they were mediators as well. And actually, that soft power is huge for England and Wales, but the broader UK actually. Around the world, and I think we don't make enough of that as well. I think we've got to make a case for that with our own people in the general public here, but beyond, and saying that continue to use.
We're quite unique as a solicitor's profession. I mentioned about 210,000 members, but we've got 12,000 solicitors practicing internationally, around the globe. So, the law is a global commodity, shall we say. And so we've got over 12,000 now solicitors, in Australia or in Greece or in, Canada or wherever it will be. And so, wherever I go on my travels now, I meet solicitors from England and Wales in those countries and jurisdictions to say, well, because, how can we help or how can we support you? And also facilitate ease of access of dual qualification, to qualify in another country and everything else. And as I say, for us, we've got such a great system. We've got our history, our respect for our judiciary and our, the way that we hold ourselves out. But we should never take that for granted. We've always got to be, pushing to be the best or to do better as such. And, so that's why as a membership body, I'm really passionate to make sure that we use our members' voices to convey that to the people who are making decisions.
I mean, I think one of the big challenges for your role for the Law Society is that it does cover 2 or 3, 4 professions. You know what I mean? There's a huge bandwidth there. And I don't mean purely just in scale of the firms that we're talking about, although, Clifford Chance is clearly a very different firm to the one maybe that you train and work at as well. I think there's that element to it, but also the nature of the work that's done as well. And I think it's, I can see why the regulatory element has kind of, moved away, and that's diversifying a bit now as well. But what's interesting, I guess my question is going to be, given your background and your position, what would you like those leaders of the really large firms to take on during your presidency? What would you like them to hear or do differently as a result of
I think
your words?
It's not necessarily leaders of large firms.
Right.
What I'm going to say is, taking your point, we've got such a diverse membership covering a huge variety of law, and a lot of firms now and individuals are specialists. As a president, I can't come in really and change the world or such, or say I'm going to focus on one area. So I've really looked at 3 generic things that it doesn't matter if you're in the city or sole practitioner.
Yeah.
You can relate with my themes. And so, my presidential themes are things that it's not really, I'm looking at it what you can do rather than what I can do.
Right.
So my themes are trying to build a profession that is fit for the future, that is resilient and we're not losing people. And why are we losing people, as such? And obviously that can encompass technology and AI and all of the things that go with it. Second thing is, we need to champion the work that we're doing, and create this positive image rather than this negative rhetoric that is out there. So to the leaders out there, making sure that you're saying, you've done a good job, and congratulations and really promoting the positive impact that you're having. And then my third one, which is supporting solicitor wellbeing.
Yeah.
So for me,
Which underpins the other
which underpins everything. So, whether you be a sole practitioner or high street firm or in-house or whatever, it doesn't matter what area of law you do. My themes are really, say, making you think, is my firm or is where I am ready for the next step? What am I doing? Am I conveying that do people really know what I'm doing and how well I'm doing it? And thirdly is, am I looking after myself and those around me as such? And at the end of the 12 months, if you look back and say, actually, we need to make some tweaks or we need to make some changes, you can do that. Now, as a Law Society, we hope to give you some resources to point you in the right direction. We work with some fantastic charities and other organisations and groups that we can steer people to. But it's just, I never look at the Law Society, never just look at what are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
I look at it as we can point you in the right direction, we can steer you there, but ultimately it's like me on that treadmill when I'm running, it's my decision ultimately. I've got to be the one to drive the change or to make the change. And you always think someone else will do it for you, but sometimes you can be in a firm and think, oh, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Well, sometimes you just need to be bold and say, do you know what? We need to change the way we do this, or we need to implement something new. It's just giving you that courage or that sort of determination to give it a go.
Yeah, I think the same Mark that's leading the Law Society is the one who turned up to the park run saying, well, I volunteer after having been the person on the treadmill, right? I mean, it's like, that's who shows up, isn't it? There's some individual performance, there's some volunteering and contribution, and there's some leadership as well. And I think that it's harder to get to leadership if you haven't done some of those other things along the way. I think they're good for you. The sooner you start out as a lawyer, getting out and volunteering and realising that your voice makes a difference in society, it's good for you.
But I also think, and this is one of the things we're going to be doing this year with our round tables, for example, on wellbeing, is that, and maybe with you and me, when we qualified as lawyers. We learned the law, we learned how to process the law. I wasn't taught how to manage people, or to market a practice, or to operate accounts, or when I say operate accounts, as in solicitors' accounts rules and all of that. But you're a lawyer, and most lawyers now are running businesses, and whether it be all sizes, all shapes, and it's having the right skill set involved. And so for me, we see a lot of problems maybe evolving in the law because we've got the wrong people in the wrong positions. That manager is a fantastic lawyer, but not good at managing people as such. And so, that's not to say they shouldn't manage people, but what can we be doing to help and support them? And so you look at things like the Law Care, Life in the Law report and all of that.
Work.
For me, it highlights that middle and senior management haven't got the skills or the training that really will help or support them. So how can we help and support those people to basically, look at what they're doing and give them the support? Now, whether that's done on an individual basis or in a group, collective or whatever, doesn't really matter. But it's acknowledging that these people need some training or help or some support because they know no other way of doing it. They've grown up in this environment. This is how it's always been, the long hour culture, or taking work home with you or working on holiday and all of this. And so to suddenly say to somebody, you've got that wrong, they haven't got it wrong.
No.
They're doing what naturally they've always thought. But it's just having that conversation to say, well, what other support or what would help you in your role, to do something maybe a little bit different.
So, I mean, professionally, there's obviously some perfectionism in there, because we know that any mistake is going to lead to a dispute. But that mindset isn't the same one that we need to comport over into our management and leadership roles, right? Because, as you correctly say, we need to identify, I need to be a student first before I can be an expert at this. I mean, easier for you to say than me, really, having been a lecturer.
Yeah.
You know, but I think there's a very big conversation to have with the profession there. Like over here, you're an expert, and over here, we need you to be a student again and to learn and to have that kind of mindset to it as well. Of all the people I know that could have that conversation with people, I think you're right up there. One of the things we did the other day, I'd love you to come to the next one, was we did the Linked Influencers event, and it was a lot of fun. There was a moment I started out in my speech and I said, look, you're going to freak everyone out in the building, because there was so much laughter in the room before we got going. And I said, everyone's going to wonder what's going on in here. There's a group of happy lawyers, right, in a room together. What do you've got those themes for the year. What is the thing, do you think, that people could do that's going to bring, if they're, you know, maybe they're living, you know, within the confines of a busy day and all that, what can they do along the lines of your guidance that are going to make the biggest difference to their happiness, do you think, over the year ahead?
I think you need to be as strict with your social diary as you are with your work diary. You know, we never miss a client appointment. We never miss a deadline, or we shouldn't miss a deadline. You know, we're really rigid with what's in the diary in your work you stick to.
Yeah.
You never normally then put your ancillary things into your diary, or you're more willing to sort of drop them. So, you know, if you were meeting, let's say, your mum at 7 o'clock for a meal on Thursday, if you're still in work, you'll most probably phone and say, well, I can't make it tonight, mum. You know, you've got an appointment, you stick to it, you know, because that 1 hour could be what she needs or what you need to break up or to change your day, you know, and it's sort of making sure that you find time for you in your day, whether that be if you're a morning person early in the morning, or a lunchtime walk, or something in the air, but you put it actually in your diary and you stick to it and you do it. So, you know, for when I was training for the marathon and all of that, I knew I had to go out and train 3 or 4 times a week. I put it in my diary. I'd literally said, I block out an hour, Thursday night, I'm going out running, you know, stuck to it. But, you know, would I, you know, have cancelled going out to meet with my friends or socialising or whatever? Yeah, or I'm too tired. I've had a busy day or a busy week. You give things up. And I think you know, it's little things can make a big difference, you know. And so when we had a round table with the junior lawyers and listening to all their ideas, and it was fantastic to hear what they do to help and improve their well-being, you know, like bringing a pet to work or things of these things, and all these little great ideas. And so at the end of my year, I hope to have a sort of a list of things for people to say, well, have you ever thought about this?
Yeah.
Now, 1 or 2 of those things on that list, you might go, that's a really good, I can do that. That's great. You know, it's just giving somebody something else to do. And, you know, and I say to my students, and in fact, when they start their course, say to them, write down on a piece of paper what you love doing. You know, one thing that you really love doing. And then at the end of the year, you open that piece of paper and say, do you still do it? And the chances are they'll say no.
Wow.
Because they're too busy being a student or whatever. And that's what we do as lawyers. We give up things we love to do. We shouldn't. And I look back now, and you know, and I look back and thinking, I got to a point in 2019 when I shouldn't have got to that point.
Right.
You know, if I would have really been a bit more controlling with my time and what I was doing, I'd got to that sort of crisis point, that thing. And we've all been there. I'm sure we've all experienced things on a personal level or family levels. But you step back and look back and think, there were things that I could have done differently to eliminate or reduce maybe where I was going. And I think sometimes that diary system, which we're really good at lawyers, and we see it every day and we look to see what we're doing, put it in there.
There's a lovely barrister on LinkedIn who's called Leah, who I think is now a professional counsellor type as well. Brilliant. she'll know who she is when she sees this video. She taught me about a traffic light system, and just knowing Mark, I would deal with things when they were deep red. That's when I started looking at them, right? So she's like, "Say, we should be looking at them as it's flickering towards amber. Never mind over there, where." And it changed my life. That ability to kind of step back and go, wait, this is going the wrong way, as it were. You need to manage this a bit sooner. Now, a couple of last quick fire questions for you as well. Maybe slightly more frivolous. I think that'd be a bit of fun. If we were, let's have a game and estimate how many selfies you're going to be asked for this year. How many do you get asked for on a daily basis at the moment? Please tell me it is quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few, but actually, it's quite embarrassing really for me because obviously I do a lot of admission ceremonies. I've done 31 admission ceremonies as an office holder.
And we're only 4 months in.
And then there's 60 or so in each admission ceremony. Wow. So every time you've got a picture with you in the stroll, so it's just like, oh my word, because I'm not somebody who so I always take a picture of them rather than me on my LinkedIn posts. I take a picture of the audience rather than posting me in that setting. So you do get asked for a lot of pictures, but it's really strange, about I've really got into this role not realising that you say, celebrity status or whatever it is. It hasn't really hit me, but it hit me in Liverpool not long after I'd become president.
Right.
So I'd gone, and I work in Liverpool. I've been to Liverpool Law Society dinner for years with my university, and I know a lot of the people on the committee and that. And I'd got there, and I was, the guest speaker. And I said to my wife, I'm going to the VIP drinks reception shortly.
Right.
And she's still, yeah, okay. I said, I'm not really sure who the VIPs are, but looking forward to it. I'll speak to you tomorrow. And then I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, it suddenly dawned on me I was the VIP.
Yeah.
And it hadn't even crossed my mind that I was the VIP walking into that room. And all of a sudden, the master of ceremonies and the photographer saying, Mark, can you come here? Mark, can you have the picture with this? Mark, can you do that? And it was like, oh my word, it is me. And, it's a strange scenario. And it's something that it's hard to get your head around because, as I say, you just don't expect it. But what I really, really appreciated for me, which I haven't really spoken about yet, is when I've met past presidents in the before I moved into this role, if they engage with you and they speak to you, you remember that.
Yeah.
And so I go out of my way, wherever I am, to say hello or to talk to people.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know what impact that will have on somebody as such. And so in 2014, I was president of Cheshire and North Wales Law Society. I had Nick Fluck next to me as the president, who was a sole practitioner from a 2-partner firm in Lincolnshire. And I never thought, as I said, I could be president. I always thought you had to be, public, private educated, Oxford, Cambridge, Clifford Chance, big city firm. Nick sat next to me for 2 hours and we were identical in the work we did, volunteering and all these different things. And he sort of left, he sort of said, if I can do it, why can't you?
Yeah.
And I just, there's something just dropped into, me then. And it's sort of, wow. And, I will tell you a story if we've got time to tell you a quick story.
Definitely do.
Because basically, that was the Friday night. And Saturday morning, and some people may have heard this, on Saturday morning, I was in a supermarket in my hometown. And as I walk in, about 8 o'clock, I could see my mum at the end of the vegetable aisle with a group of women. And we've all done it when you've walked down an aisle and you see somebody and you think, oh, maybe I don't want to talk to them just at this moment in time. But we've given each other eye contact. So it was a point of no return. So I walk over to my mum and it's the usual, let me introduce you to Mark, my son. He's the president of the Law Society. And she stopped there. And I looked at her, she looked at me, and I thought, that's not quite right. That isn't right at all. And I thought, a split second, I thought, well, I'm not going to correct her because these ladies don't know,
Right.
Really, it's not of any significance to them. My mum has obviously told them. I don't want to say anything to my mum in front of them. I let that go. The ladies walked away. I then said to my mum, I'm president of Cheshire and North Wales Law Society. And she just smiled and looked at me and said, "But one day you will be."
Oh, wow.
And the tragic thing is, a few months later, she passed away.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so, 10, 11 years later, when I had my inauguration in October, yeah, she was right. She had the belief in me that you could. And it's little things like that, in your life. And that conversation with Nick Fluck, that opportunity I had for work experience as a sixth former, the confidence that my parents gave me to do things.
Yeah.
It's just at that moment in time, you never see what the relevance is.
Let me ask you a favour. It's a weird thing to do in the podcast, but Gemma, who runs my business day to day, bought me the most amazing Christmas present. I think you might like it, given what you're going through.
Yeah.
It's called Mosaic, and I've got it on my phone here, which is why I pulled it up a minute ago. And you take one photo a day. You select one photo a day, and they then literally go and print a year of your life at the end of it. Okay, so it's quite a big exam, but it nudges you every day. What's today's memory? What's this thing? And I think you're going to have this amazing year.
Oh, yeah.
And all the bit afterwards. Yeah. And I wonder whether you might try and record that into just select one photo a day, official, on your own phone, wherever. Imagine the mosaic of your life for that year. Because somebody out there needs to hear you as Nick Fluck. Somebody needs to go,
exactly.
I can do this.
Yeah, and that's what Nick, and this is, it's not what I'm doing is different. Right. It's just being that human touch to say, I'm you and you are me. And, you shouldn't have that. And it's the one thing I'm really, really teaching has given me the ability to say to all my students, many of whom are from, deprived backgrounds or, lacking in sort of confidence and have that imposter syndrome about entering into law. And I just sort of loved saying to them, you can do it.
If I can ever do anything to help them in that group when you're back involved, let me know. I'm a huge advocate for that social mobility as well. And I think that my girls are lucky enough to go to a different kind of school. I went to a state school, but the confidence they've got, I think, is a network. The two things are the biggest difference. Right? It has the natural confidence of a privately educated kid, and you don't have the network and the opportunities that those kids do as well.
I'm going to take you up on the offer of that picture and do that. And I will be, completely open with you now. I take a picture of where I am, one picture, and I post, and it's my diary.
Yeah.
And, it's in the back of my mind, and I've had this conversation with my family, that there's so much that I am so similar to my dad that I, wouldn't be surprised if I get dementia.
Right.
So everything now is a diary for me to say, do you know what? I was there, I did that, I met these people. And so, it's a picture diary that I'm developing that, I look back and think, where did I go last week? Who did I meet? I have no idea, but the picture tells me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'm meeting so many people and so many appointments in a day, it's hard to keep up with where you are and what you're doing. And actually, a past president, Andrew Holdroyd from Liverpool Law Society and past president of this society, National Law Society, says, keep a diary, keep a record of where you go and what you do. I'm not very good at a paper diary. My LinkedIn actually is my diary.
Somebody said to me recently, we should just have AI recording your voice each day and it will turn it into your diary for you after.
Possibly.
Quite a nice thing to do, a 5-minute conversation. Final question, because you've been so generous with your time. To Brett then, we're going to hand on the baton.
Yeah.
So later in the year, and we've done our time, what are we hoping we're going to hand on and say, Brett, is there any chance you can run with some of these things as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we work closely as a leadership team. So there's myself and Brett, and then there's going to be Dana as such. And, clearly there are themes that I'm doing that he will continue. Hopefully he'll bring his own, things to the table that he's passionate about and his different skills. But I think the view that, going back to that running analogy as well, where it's a continual chain of passing the baton on.
Yeah.
And the job is always evolving. All I want is to hand it over to Brett in a better place in the best possible place it can be for what the next year ahead brings. And we don't know, there's things that can happen in the world of politics and everything else. But we need to be making sure as a profession we're in that strong place and we're having the conversations with the right people and moving it forward. So for me, I'm confident Brett will follow on things like wellbeing, and championing the profession and pride, and I know he's a person to say he's a legal geek, when it comes to technology and AI and all of that. He can advance that far better than me. He's got those skills and he's got that ability to do that. And then Dana will bring her unique style and skill to it as well. And so I think, looking ahead, we've got, a great team to pass. And that's the key. It's a team. It's not what you as an individual are going to do.
Right.
It's sort of, it's a team. It's the thing that, we're all slowly going to, move away and do it, And as I say, I pinch myself sometimes to think, here I am in this role, but it's a transitional role, isn't it? We go back to doing what we do and everything else. And, so yeah, I'm excited. I'm an optimist. I'm always an optimist. And I think we've got a chance to make
I think it's an important time to be an optimist. I think the world needs, the lighthouse that is the Law Society on Chancery Lane, like a beacon of light and hope as well. It sounds like some people say it's slightly bombastic. I'm not too worried about that. I think the law is hugely influential in our lives, and I think we need to see it shine over the next few years. It's going to be really important. Your rule of law reference there, notwithstanding. I think we've got a lot to do. So listen, good luck for the rest of the.
Thank you so much,
and thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, thank you for watching. I'll never, like I said, take that for granted. And equally, if you feel that some things that Marcus said resonate with you, please can you send it to friends or leaders or whoever's important to you that needs to hear some of those messages as well. And subscribe. It'd be great to have you along for the ride. Thanks.